welcome to all the attendees. We are going to go in a little different order today because we have our public hearing of our amended FY25 budget. And then we'll take action if needed in that, and before we move on to our regular agenda. So with that, Laura, would you?
Alrighty. There is really not a lot to talk about on the amended side because we've been talking about it all year long. What the amended budget does is basically true up what our ending fund balance was for FY24 to start the year with that. So we ended 24 with $2.9 million, and we started FY25, with $2.9 million, and then truly just the actual activity of what has happened. You'll see there's a significant difference in what we budgeted for local revenue versus what we received. Local revenue includes our levy dollars, and our levy dollars were paid with House Bill 292, which becomes state money instead of local money because it wasn't from our local taxpayers, it was from our state taxpayers, and so it moves that line item. So that's the only reason that you see the difference there in that line item, and you'll see that it just does move from local down to the state section right there. So our revenues a little bit higher. We talked about the fact that our units were under protection, so we got a little bit more money, and so that you see that increase in that total revenue up there. And then as you come down on the salary line items, we did pay out a little bit more in salaries than we had anticipated. We had a payout of a couple of contracts that weren't anticipated, and so those were unbudgeted things. But with the additional revenues that we received, it wasn't an issue to the budget. So with increased salaries also comes, a little bit more in benefits because of the Social Security and the PERSI piece that goes along with that. Purchase services, these are all of our contract services if we're buying anything online. The copier contracts that we have with Fishers and Dex Imaging, those kinds of things, all of that comes out of those purchase services line items. So, and so again, this is just really a true up of what really happened. We had projected our budget to end at $2.2 million, and after all of the adjustments with the additional salaries and the additional purchase service expenses that we had, and also a little bit more in our capital expenditures, not much, but a little bit more in that line item. We are projecting to end this year at 2.1, just shy of $2.2 million in that fund balance. So unless there's any specific questions, we can certainly go through the line items, but the monthly report we've been doing since March has been compared to this amended budget.
We went over this pretty extensively already in our meeting Thursday. So, knowing that, in order for us to move on and consider it, somebody passed. We would consider a motion if there was one.
I'll move that we accept the FY25 amended budget.
I'll second that. Okay. Motion been made and seconded to accept the amended budget for FY25. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is fiscal year 26 budget.
Okay. Alrighty, so we do have a slide presentation that we'll go through very, very quickly. And kind of want to advance to the first slide, just to let the people who didn't get to see this the other day know what's going on. Budgeting is a lot of fun. It basically comes down to a very simple formula that the state puts together for us. So this is about what it takes to put it all together. So you want to go on to the next one? And I reiterate this every year for everybody. The most exciting thing about educational funding is that it's still student-based. I just think that is the most critical thing, and I hope the state never gets away from that. And I hope nobody looks at that as being numbers. Those are bodies that we are wanting to educate. So who is being taught, how many are being taught, and who is teaching them are the three foundations of how our money is generated from the state level. And so this report up here gives us an idea of how the state is looking at that. We have a unit, what they call a unit divisor, that determines a support unit based on the grade level of the student being taught and the age of the student being taught. So for kindergarten students, the unit divisor is 40 because the state's only funding a half day of kindergarten. So they're expecting us to have, on an average daily basis, 20 kids in each one of our kindergarten classes. That's what the state funds us on. So what we're looking at right now is this year's support unit calculation. So these are actual numbers for us. So you can look at that and see that we had kindergarten students, we had an average daily attendance of 90, divided by that unit divisor, gives us 2.25 funding units for our kindergarten. Same thing as you go down to elementary, the divisor is 20. 4th through 6th grade, the divisor is 23. And then when you get into the secondary level, the divisor is 16. And it's not that they expect an average of 16 students in each one of those classes. We're going to have 30 to 40 kids in an Algebra 1 class, but we're probably only going to have 8 kids in a calculus class. So that you see some of those averages, and that 16 gives us the ability to offer more classes at our secondary level. We get some additional funding for special education students, and so the unit divisor there's a formula that's built in the background for that. But what all of this boils down to is that our actual support units for funding for this year were 73 units. Then we've talked a lot this year on our amended budget about the fact that we were protected. The state doesn't let us lose more than 3% of our support units in any one year, and so it's a self-insured pool. So every school district in the state of Idaho contributes units to the pool, and then those of us who need them get units back out. So our actual unit calculation was 73, but we're funded on 74 units. So we're under protection this year. And then that is our little bit that we had to give back to the pool, that 0.18 of a funding unit. So we're funded on 74.66 units this year. So this is what we've talked about with that amended budget. So foundation program calculation is the way that it's the report that we get from the state 4 times a year that says how our money was generated. You'll see that 74.66 protected unit number up in the top of that. That number is multiplied by our discretionary number, multiplied by our health insurance number to give us $3.2 million in what they call our entitlement or our discretionary money. Salary-based apportionment is where we get to the who is teaching us. You've heard the state talk a lot about the career ladder. The career ladder at the state level is a funding mechanism. Each of our teachers, based on their experience and their education and their performance in the classroom, is placed on a rung on that career ladder. That career ladder is averaged out for the people that we actually have on staff, and then multiplied through a formula of those 74.6 units to determine how much money that we get for those people. So each one of these pieces is built on that student population. So go to the next slide. So to start for next year, where do we start? We start with the students. This year, we have 1,461 students at that first reporting period. We graduated we had 139 seniors, and we are only bringing in 90 kindergartners. So you see we have a huge decrease in our student population because we have no way to determine if we're going to grow in each one of the individual grades between those. So if you go into the next slide, that 1,409 students, if we take them and divide them out through the same categories that we had before, and we say that we average 95% attendance, this is where we come up with our estimated daily attendance, average daily attendance. We run those numbers through that same report that we had that was actual, and it comes up and it tells us that our estimated support units for next year are 70.3. So we are conservatively budgeting on 70 units for next year. So those 70 units will run through all of those same mechanisms that our amended budget did for this year, who our teachers are, how many of these kids they're teaching, and who those kids are and what grade level they're teaching. So go ahead and go on to the next one. This is what we talked about a little bit with the career ladder as a funding mechanism for the state. So each one of our teachers, again, based on their education and experience, is placed on this career ladder. I can say that. So you'll see that the rungs over on the left-hand side, you have an R1, an R2, and an R3. The R stands for resident. So it's just like a doctor who has to practice for a few years before he gets to go out and be on his own. Our teachers who are in their first, second, or third year of teaching are monitored at a higher level than our experienced teachers are. Once they have met certain standards, 50% of their, plus 1% of their students are attaining the goals that have been set. They are proficient on their evaluation. They're not basic in any area. Then they move on to that professional rung. And then you see that we have an advanced professional, the AP, that's the advanced professional rung. Those are your really rock star stellar teachers. These teachers are leaders in their, not only in their classroom, but leaders in their buildings, and their students are making 75% progress. So this is where we get that average that we use to multiply through our funding units in order to get our revenue. So you can go into the next one. This is that super simple spreadsheet that kind of talks about that formula we looked at on the second slide of this. And so the average that we get for the teacher, the average that we get for our counselors, and the average index that we have for our building administrators runs through this formula to determine our revenue. So $6.5 million in salary. Nope, you're good.
Not real good.
Back one. So all of this data, again, student-based, it takes each one of these totals and puts it onto the next page that you have. Sorry about that, I should have let you stay there. And then that comes down to this total amount of revenue that we're going to get from the state. So $12 million is what we're expecting to receive from the state. And that's the number that was on that state revenue line item on the budget that was in the newspaper. So this is the budget that was in the newspaper. And then we did, just because I have to put that in the newspaper 3 weeks before we have this meeting, there's a lot that's still going on, and so some of those numbers are a little bit fluid. So if you want to go to the next one, this is exactly what was published. These are the line items that changed for what I'm asking the board to approve tonight. Salaries changed a little bit on the amended budget, and we talked about that, and that was just really the reality of things and where things lay. Came out, and then we did, but what the shortfall, with the money that we didn't spend in salaries, we're spending down on the supply line item. And some of that is our Fund 420 is our facilities fund, that the money that's generated there is from the levy. So we try and keep everything that is levy specific in those big dollar items in that 420, but because we had the money in our general fund to go ahead and spend, we moved a couple of those furnace replacements and some of those kinds of things back into our general fund. The only other line item that you see on the proposed budget for FY26 is that net transfers out number. And that number increased to $699,000. And I've got a slide that's going to address that. But those are the changes from what was in the newspaper. So just kind of talk about that a little bit. And what we were asking the board to approve tonight is those changed numbers. So this is, I forgot that I put this slide in there. I thought I left this one out. So it's just a general fine tuning of what we did. So that's why there was changes on there. So that's how our money is generated, and this is how we're spending it. In our FY26 budget, 88% of our state and local revenue will be spent on salary and benefits. Benefits includes our Social Security and our PERSI retirement, but it also includes all of our health benefits that we offer to our employees. So we only have 12% of all of the money that we get from our state and our levy dollars to pay heating bills, curriculums, buy our school buses, and literally the day-to-day cost of renting a school. We only get 12% of that money in order to do that. Go on to the next one. So revenues are down because our funding units are down. We just went through that whole process, and the fact that we graduated 139 seniors, and we're only getting in about 90 kindergartners if we're lucky. Keep our fingers crossed. Salary expense is down a little bit. What you've seen here, we're trying to give our teachers a really good salary increase this year and move the Weiser School District to the state's career ladder, not only as a funding mechanism, but also as our payment mechanism, trying to get that one-to-one. The reason we're not right at the exact same level with the state this year is because the state, what our student population funds for us is 77 teachers, and we have 86. So we have more teachers than what the state funds us, but that is also by design because we want to keep our class sizes small. So it's a good thing. So, but with that reduction in student population, we are reducing 7 teachers and 4 teaching assistants. The benefit line item is higher because I'm just conservative enough that I believe I should budget health benefits for all employees, even though I know there's 10 of them that are not going to take it. If they change their mind over the summer and decide to take that insurance benefit, then I need to have the money in the budget in order to allow that to happen. And so you'll see an increase there. It's not because what we're paying for is any higher in those health benefits. We're offering the exact same coverage and benefit to the employee that we did last year, but it's just I am budgeting for 100% of those folks, just in case. Supplies are down a little bit because we're not purchasing a major curriculum this year. Last year we bought the Eureka Math for the K through 5 math curriculum, and that was about $380,000, so just at $400,000. So this is what we were talking about on the career ladder. So what you see in the center is the career ladder, which is the funding mechanism for the state. So if we had exactly the same number of teachers that the state says we should have, and they all fell into each one of those rungs on the career ladder, we would be able to pay exactly those dollars out to our teachers. But because we have more, we needed to reduce some of those line items just a little bit throughout. So the ones that are not highlighted are reduced by just a little less than $2,000 from what the state's career ladder is. But this is still an increase for 90% of our teachers. It's a fairly significant increase. So, and the way that so we talked about the rungs on the career ladder. So you have your resident. Resident just needs to show up to work and continue to do their job teaching kids, and the board wants to keep them hired in the district, and they moved from an R1 to an R2 to an R3. When you become a professional, there are standards that you have to meet. 50% plus one student must meet the goals that have been established for the teacher. The teacher meets with their building administrator in the beginning of every year and establishes those goals. And so the teacher has a buy-in into what those goals are, and they must meet those goals. They also can no longer have any unsatisfactory marks on their evaluation. They can still have some basics. That's not true. You cannot be basic and be a professional because your residents should have improved your teaching abilities to where you're no longer basic. To be moved to an advanced professional run, you need to be distinguished in those teaching fields. So there are some rules and regulations, and so what this does for the Weiser School District is it moving to the career ladder allows our teachers to have a vested interest in the growth of their students. It allows the district to identify those teachers that need some additional training in certain areas so that they can attain those goals. And so it's a better way of sitting down and really having a checkbox to say, okay, these guys, we're not just paying you more because you showed up again this year. We're paying you more because you deserve it and our kids benefited from you being here. So that's what those rungs on that career ladder do for us. We'll go ahead and go to the next
You
one.
don't want these, do you?
No, we
Okay.
talked about those really quickly. So this, and I told you we talk about the transfers between funds. So all of our revenue comes into the general fund, and then we have some things that we like to specifically track. So our Indian Head Academy, the money is part of general fund, but we like to see how much that costs us. So we've separated that out. So next year we're anticipating Indian Head Academy costing $171,537. Technology is a fund that is funded at the state level, but not high enough. We need to purchase an additional 400 Chromebooks next year. Chromebooks have a 4 to 5 year life cycle, and at the end of that cycle, it's not that they don't work anymore, it's just that they can't do a security update anymore. And with our students taking tests on that and our student being identified as the one that's taking the test on there, we don't want to have a computer that doesn't have a security system supporting it. So we need to buy, we have 379 that are going to be out of security next year. So we're going to buy 400 replacements next year, but that's got to come out of the general fund because the technology fund doesn't have enough in it. Medicaid, and we'll talk more about special education as we get to the later in the evening. Our Medicaid reimbursements from the federal government are reducing. We are still required by law to provide services to all of our special needs students, and those services can include speech language pathology, psych services, one-on-one, and occupational therapy, one-on-one aids for some of our students who are just not capable of handling the day without somebody being with them all the time. Our expenses are greatly exceeding what that Medicaid federal reimbursement is, and so the general fund is again having to fund that. Food services, this is another area where the federal government is not keeping up with the cost of everything. Our reimbursement for school lunch meals is only covering about 2/3 of the cost of preparing that meal. So because we want to continue to offer lunch to our students, and even though the students are paying a portion of it, it's not the full cost of the meal that they're paying. We get a reimbursement for the differential. And because that's a shortfall from what it's actually costing us, we're expecting $183,000 to have to come from the general fund in order to support food services next year. Bus depreciation, we will move at least $85,000 over to bus depreciation. State law requires that bus depreciation be reserved and used only for the purchase of a new bus. So we are required, we receive it's a declining 12-year depreciation formula. So when we purchase a new bus, it's depreciated over a 12-year period of time, and that dollar amount that all of our buses that are on the depreciation schedule generate must be moved over into Fund 424. So the revenues received in Fund 100, and then we have to move that over to 424 in order and save that to purchase a bus. We've talked a lot about our school modernization money, and that's the $6.5 million that we received in order to improve our facilities. That $6.5 million is not all new money to us because it took a little over $2 million out of what we used to get over a 10-year period of time in order to upgrade, our basic heaters and paint buildings and do all those kinds of things, non-capital projects. So the state recognizes because they took that money away from us in order to give us the $6.5 million that they gave us the opportunity to utilize the interest that we receive on that modernization money back into the other funds that pay for the standard upkeep of our buildings and the maintenance salaries and stuff, those kinds of things. And so Fund 436, which is that $6.5 million school modernization money, the interest on that will come back into the general fund next year to help pay for some of those everyday expenses. This is the depreciation schedule on the buses, and you can see the 2 new buses that we just got in this year generated $47,000, $48,000 in in depreciation. So it behooves us to purchase a new bus and keep our fleet new. We have 15 route buses, so even if we only buy 1 new bus every year, we still have a bus that's on the streets every day that's 15 years old. So 2 reasons to purchase a new bus every year. 1, we get the depreciation at a higher rate that assists us in purchasing that bus. And 2, a 15-year-old bus may not have all the same security features on it that a new bus does. So keeping our kids safe. How were your levy dollars spent? This is something that everybody will want to know, and this is something that, with your permission tonight, I will be putting in the newspaper next week. This is what our ballot said. We needed $750,000 from our taxpayers in order to support all-day kindergarten with $130,000, salaries, expenses, and supplies for athletics so that it's not a pay-to-play for $162,000, technology, equipment, and upgrades of $58,000, and then our track at $400,000. So this is a spreadsheet that shows that we received those funds, and we spent those funds exactly like we told you that we would spend them. The difference is House Bill 292 gave us $783,000. We only asked our Weiser taxpayers to pay us $750,000. So the state gave us $783, so while we still spent it the way we told the taxpayers we were gonna spend it, it wasn't Weiser tax dollars, Weiser School District tax dollars that paid that, it was state tax dollars that paid that. So we did not have to levy our local taxpayers anything last year for our supplemental levy. But this will be going into the newspaper with your approval, of course, next week, just to let everybody know how we did spend those dollars. And the $6.5 million that I keep talking about, we are working through our 10-year plan, and I believe Mr. Kirby will address our 10-year plan tonight under a discussion item. But we, at the point in time, put the 10-year plan together with everything we thought we'd need and with the price that we thought it would cost for us and all of those kinds of things. And even 6 months later, we're starting to see that, this didn't cost that much, and so maybe we could do this. And now we have a grant to do that, so maybe we don't need to do that with those dollars. So you'll see some amendments to the 10-year plan, but the basis of the 10-year plan will stay in place, and it is to keep our schools updated and modern and safe for all of our schools. So if you're driving around town right now, you'll see that there's roofers on the high school, soon to be roofers on the Pioneer Elementary School, and you can't get into the Weiser High School gym right now because there's not a floor in there, and there's not any bleachers in there. So all of our projects that were on those 10-year plan that were scheduled to happen this year are hot and heavy into the middle of doing all of that. So, and with that, I got my hour and 45-minute presentation down to 45 minutes. So, questions is all that's left. So,
Questions.
So, and it is a public hearing, so questions from you all as well as the audience are welcome.
Any questions?
Thank you.
All right. We can do it right here.
Come on, Tyler.
Okay, so if there's no further questions for the budget,
I want to unplug that one. I don't need to be plugged in anymore.
Can I ask one question?
yes, you can.
So the one question, and I've heard it talked about here, but I would like some clarification. I think a lot of people thought, or they heard, that within the 400,000 for the track, that would include the building also. That you already had the metal donated for, but people felt like that was included within $400,000.
Who would you like?
Well, you were here.
Okay, so, and you are correct. We had hoped to be able to do the building as part of that. None of us realized that it was almost $2 million to construct the building, and none of us realized that the track was going to cost $1.2 million instead of $800,000. So you'll hear later tonight, we do have some plans. It still is a focus of the district to get that building put up, but what was donated to us was the steel and the insulation for the building, but the construction and the concrete pad and all of those kinds of things, and the finishing of the building on the inside, plumbing, electrical, and all of that is up to the district. And as I said, we had no idea that it would cost as much as it does. And so we're working on plans to try and get that done as quickly as possible, because they will hold the building for us. They're not going to give it away, and they're not going to ungift it to us. So it is a goal of the district to do that. But the $400,000 for 2 years in the levy, so the $800,000 that we asked our taxpayers for the track and the building wasn't even enough to cover the track.
But we will talk a little bit more about that later in this meeting. But that's a good question, because we talked about that very thing, because that was a specific item when we went out to the public for that levy. So bear with us, we will answer that question a little bit more later. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you. So in order for us to move into our regular meeting, I would entertain a motion considering the FY26 budget.
I'll make a motion that we adopt the presented model of the fiscal year 2026 budget.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion to adopt the fiscal year 26 budget. It's been presented to us, it's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We have a budget.
Thank you.
We have a fluid budget. With that, we can move back to our regularly scheduled uninterrupted meeting. Mr. Kirby, would you give us a report for you and your administrators?
Okay, well, it's been a big month, and administrators are off tonight, so they don't all turn in a report. They're out for their summer break as of last week. But a lot of things happened this last month. We had the alternative school had a graduation on May 15th. There were three students that graduated, and really excited to see those kids have kind of turned their life around from where they were and got through that school and graduated, and they'll have plans, and it's just really fun and exciting to see that. Not as much fun, we completed a reduction in force process. We went from, as you can see in our budget, we're clearly overstaffed in some areas, and we were overstaffed in our special ed budget, and so we had a reduction in force from 7 to 5 teachers. And so that was a rough process because it was just, we had to make a rubric, and so we downsized 2 teachers in that department. I threw out in one of my reports to you that our high school complex has 1 irrigation pump, 1 irrigation well. They're really struggling with the additional watering of everything, and we're looking at the potential of putting another well up there. And I guess McLaren is kind of the go-to well drilling outfit from around here, from what I understand. He's clear out till October before he can even give us an estimate. So if anybody knows of someone closer by and can get on it, we're going to try to patch it through to them. But the irrigation, there's 100 some valves according to Marcy, and several of the zones are combined, and she has to water like the new grass twice a day for 15 minutes to try to get the new grass going out on the track. So she's performing some magic up there to try to keep everything wet. We had graduation here a couple weeks back, and that went really well. Thank you all the board members and diplomas. We went to the career ladder this last month and met with all the teachers, because this is a huge transition from the method of steps and lanes that we've had forever, where you get some more education and another year you get more money. This now completely moves that to where teachers, only way they move is by getting good evaluations, having good student performance, and then when they get up the rungs of ways, leadership also is included in that. So it just changes the way that educators are going to be paid, and I think it's a positive thing. Everybody got a little bit of a raise, some $300 and some more $8,000 or $10,000, but adjusted based on their performance and where they were. So now that's a huge thing, and huge kudos to Kyla and Barb for getting through this process. It's just changing now over to the contracts for these people and notifying them and making sure they're on the right place, on the right rung. And sometimes teachers came in here from a different school, different district. We're trying to find out, did you have a leadership role back there 4 years back? Because that can make a difference. And that's been a huge process, and huge kudos to Kyla and Barb for getting that done. And mostly Kyla on that particular part of it, but the career ladder was a big move, and Barb's a big part of that. So anyway, if we can get through that, contracts just went out today, and so that was a big process. So kudos to Kyla, thank you for that. We had pre-construction meeting here a couple weeks back with EV Studio, and they're doing the Ox Gym, and they've got a place to park their stuff. Upson is already on the roof of the high school, so they're doing the high school. It's interesting, we had 3 different contractors for 3 different roofs. We thought when we went out, due to staging, we might get one contractor, might get all 3 of them, or at least 2 of them. No, it's 3 different contractors on the 3 roofs. So, but 2 of them are in place, and then we have one more meeting tomorrow, I guess, with EV Studio and
DNA?
no,
Or is it Signature?
Signature is doing Pioneer Roof. We had the school was utilized for the Fiddle Festival. Joe Goble runs a bluegrass and banjo camp. I understand they had about 100 kids there this last week. Apparently they have world-class musicians that come in and teach those kids, and they use 4 rooms in the high school, and so they take care of it, and I apparently had a really good experience. I think a lot of them camp over by Slocum Hall and do that. We also had a big basketball tournament with 29 teams this last couple weeks, so kudos to our basketball program for putting that together. Let's see, so Fiddle Festival obviously is coming up next week. I've met with Gary again today just to make sure we're all set, all the details are in. Sky, our assistant tech guy, is going to help run their sound system for them. So it's pretty comfortable with him. He's here during the days. He's still on contract throughout the summer, so we're working with them. They were really hoping to get some grass growing up at their new compound for parking behind the Institute, and they put grass in. They leveled it pretty well, put grass seed in there about 6 weeks ago, and nobody did a good enough rain dance, and it just didn't happen. And I know some firefighters actually went up there and sprayed like 5,000 gallons of water on it, trying to do a training program and trying to get it wet, but it didn't take. So it's going to be dirt, and next year I think it'll be pretty good. But for now, it is what it is, and so I know Gary and he had some people helping him kind of mark it all off, so they know where the campers are going to park, and they've got a spot for them. So we'll hope we don't get big rainstorm during this, or big windstorm. It could be pretty dusty. So. This last week, all of the administrators went to a PLC training in Boise, and put on by Solution Tree, and I think we all got something from the training for sure. We will come back, and it's something that you don't just come back and just fully implement immediately. And so I think we'll take some baby steps, but I think everybody will be doing some part of that over the course of the next 3 years. I think we're going to see a lot of more of that put in place. Let's see, the metal building field house I put in our last one. It says, I think there is and has been a public perception that was part of the levy. And I wasn't here during that time, but I've heard both sides of it, whether it was or it wasn't. But I feel like we need to try to move forward with that if we can. I think there are $400,000 last year that was obligated, but still $400,000 coming in with the levy, and if we can make that happen, that portion of it, we don't know yet what the full cost is going to be and how much we can get done with $400,000. Again, Kyla, kudos to her, got this building donated, but that's great. But if it costs $2 million to put it together, that's a stretch. So Barb did contact EV Studio today to see if they would just give us an estimate based on the kind of market practices currently. And so we'll see where that comes back, but we feel like there are some areas in the 10-year plan that were covered. The E-rate, we got a grant for it, so that was going to be a pretty big chunk of money. There was some, it looked like something, fire suppression on the oxygen? On the oxygen for $500,000. It was a big number. It's like, I think that was just placed there as a placeholder because we have a good system in there. So there are some monies in the school modernization funds, but I think the levy was never fully, never funded enough this whole building. We only have $800,000 over 2 years. You can't build a $2 million structure with $800,000. But if we can take a good chunk of it, maybe $400,000, along with some modernization funds, it'd be really nice to get that thing going, because especially the public perception is that's what we're doing with it, or a portion of it. If we can do that, I'd really like to encourage us to try to get there. So we will get an estimate from them, hopefully here in the next few days. And if we decide to go with it, we could then go get bids and get some actual hard bids on it, and see where we're at. If we could get that underway, we don't want to lose faith from our public, regardless if they didn't understand it, couldn't possibly fund this whole thing without its funds. So we clearly want to do what we say we're going to do, and if we can do it, we're going to try to move forward with that if possible, with your guys' approval. Our track is really nearing completion. Track is beautiful, I feel, and it's really nice. There were some issues with the grounds around it, with some sprinklers, with some leveling of the grounds. There's some areas that are just swaybacks, and there's puddles, and there's no way grass is going to grow. I did walk around it last week with Drew, and then with Marcy, and then with Houston Head, and who's our main contact architect with Zimmerman, and said, look, somebody said we still have a retainer of $50,000, I think, that hasn't been paid right until the end, until it's done. And they've done some really good work. They really have. And we want to encourage that, appreciate them. But there's some things that need fixed now that just are not quite acceptable at this point. And so we're kind of holding them to finish up strong, because we need to have grass there. We don't need to have, big sways and with puddles in it that aren't going to grow grass. It's just, we're not going to just pay them $50,000 and be done. So we'll see how that shakes out. But, Houston is aware, and he's communicated with the general contractors. So signature roofing tomorrow at 10 o'clock here to discuss Pioneer Roofing Project. We've been so pleased so far. I know Barb and I got it with prices on the bids that have come in so far on these roofs. When we first heard of some of the estimates, we thought, oh crap, we can't even do our roofs. And I think we had $6.5 million, and we're into it 1.7 million with our what's obligated with the roofs that we have, and the gym floor, and the painting at the high school. So we're in pretty good shape now. That's why we think we also can merge some modernization funds to make that building happen if it comes in somewhere with less than $2 million. If we get down to maybe $1 million, I think we'll probably have it. We'll see. So, if you went to high school, the bleachers are gone. They were gone last Sunday. The gym is painted. It's white all the way around. The roof is a gray color. Floor's still there, but it's going to be gone in 2 weeks. So they're waiting to finish off the painting before that actually gets ripped out. So they had 2 weeks to get it done. That probably should be done Friday or Saturday. So it's white. We're going to have a red stripe around it, a red and gray stripe around it in the middle of it, and it's going to look really sharp. I think the community will be excited and know that these modernization funds look for a good purpose. That's a real showpiece for the district, being a high school gym. I think it's going to look really nice. So if you get a chance, go peek at it. You can go in that kind of back door. The inside doors are locked and chained from the inside. Melanie tried to take a peek, but if you go around the outside door, those doors are usually open to work, and just kind of watch out for the construction workers. You can peek your head in there like that. It's looking really nice. We invited May to come and talk about buses down the road here, and trying to do at least one here, so she'll be presenting it pretty quick. Anyway, that's basically what I have, unless there's any questions.
Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Kirby? Everybody take a look at the administrative reports that were sent to us. Any questions on those administrative reports? Of course, administrators aren't here. We can ask Mr. Kirby and kind of Barb what they said. I do. No questions? Okay. Doesn't look like we have any citizen comments. So let's move right into our consent agenda. Everybody take a look at the prior meeting notes, minutes. Any questions or corrections that need to be made there? Okay. Current agenda, Kyla, any changes that need to be made to the current agenda that we didn't get on there? Okay, thank you. We do have a couple of notices.
She had 3. You want to have 3?
I have 2.
There were 3 online.
Okay, then I must not have given you that
There is-
final one.
yeah, there's-
This is, okay. So you didn't have it. Sorry about that.
No, that's okay.
Read it.
It was an email.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that works.
I'll start with that. Weezer School District, I have made the bittersweet decision to not return to a teaching position with the Weezer School District next school year. This is my official letter of resignation. I appreciate having been given the opportunity to work in this district. I will miss seeing my coworkers and the students every day. I am hoping to return to the sublist next year so I can still be of service. Thank you, Mrs. C. She's a 6th grade ELA reading. Weezer Board of Trustees, I am submitting my retirement to the Weezer School District as of July 1st, 2025. I have loved working as the Pioneer Elementary School counselor. The staff, students, and families have been wonderful to work with. I have thoroughly enjoyed the last 31 years in this position. Thank you for all you do to make the Weezer School District so great. It is always a great day for you Wolverine. Sincerely, Denise Lumber, Pioneer School counselor. Mr. Kirby, I am writing to formally resign from my position as 7th grade language arts teacher at the Weezer Middle School. After much reflection, I've decided that it is time for me to retire after 33 years of teaching, with 27 of them at Weezer. I am filled with gratitude for the students I have had the privilege of teaching and will so miss the day-to-day interactions with them. Sincerely, Brenda Dale. Thank you.
We have a couple hirees, Mr. Kirby.
Yes. Well, Mrs. Reyes, the high school science teacher, and Mallory Arnold, 4th grade teacher.
I'm sorry. No, those are the 2 listed, so.
Those are the 2 listed. I don't know if you don't list classified. Those are the 2 certified.
Those are certified.
Yeah.
We're, some of the positions that we had, that were, like the English teacher at the high school, they're moving people around. So some teachers that were at Park are gonna be at the middle school, some that are at the middle school are gonna be at the high school. It's gonna be just a
Shuffle?
shell game. How about that?
Making a shuffle?
But doing exciting times, and I do know that both principals spoke highly of these 2 new employees in the district, and just think that they're going to do a great service for our kids.
Okay. Thank you for that. Financial report.
Woohoo, you want
Have
to
we-
start all over again?
Have we heard enough about the financial reports?
I believe you have
Is
heard
there-
enough.
Is there anything that changes from,
There is not. We're at the end of May, so on everything, anything that has anything to do with salaries should be at 75%. And as you look at all of the funds, we're right there. The one fund that on the federal side that is upside down is the one that we talked about, and that's the Medicaid fund. And we'll just have to fund that out of general fund at the end of this year as well, so. But yeah, we've talked a lot about it, unless you guys have got any questions for me.
Questions? Okay. Any questions on the bills that need to be paid?
Get a chance to look at it, so I'll come to you.
I think as Riley said, they're coming in fast and furious to try to get us in before the 30th of this month. We do have some cleanup on our Carl Perkins and our CTE monies that because we have to finalize and get that done for this year, we have to get all of our product lines bought and paid for. And then she did have a late breaking one that I added there that was for that EV Studios and they're doing actually a very good job. They're well worth the money that we're paying, and I believe that was for April as well as May's services for us. And they've come out several times. I know some of you have met with them, so it's been really good. So I don't know if there was anything that really stuck in my mind on bills this month or anything. I know that they're just some things, they know that our fiscal year is ending and they want to get it in on this year so that it all gets accounted for correctly as an expenditure for this year. So, I don't have anything else to give you on that one.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that we accept the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, motion to accept the consent agenda as presented to us has been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. I'm glad you said something, Andrea. I'd almost forgotten. By the way, we excuse Andrea from our meeting. I didn't say that earlier, but she had some family. I'll excuse her from being physically here.
Okay.
Sorry. All right. Let us move on to our action items. We have been given we've been asked to make it approve the middle school handbook, a few middle school handbook changes. Before we do that, can you give us just a little bit about that, Mr. Kimberly?
Okay.
What were the changes made?
All right, so I think I sent it to you on an update at one point. There's a list of like 12
Yep.
of them, but we just change dates and times as appropriate in the document, move policies, procedures to policy section headlines. There were a couple on here that I kind of said, I counseled with them and we changed a little bit. But what they have currently, I approve. The other one, there was one on, they need to be passing all classes to be in sports. And apparently, that had been in place this year. I think it just wasn't due to the code. So that is added verbiage in it. Changed all personal communication device language to use electronic devices, added personal game platforms as a specific example, updated map and changed minor wording not affecting the policy on number 7, number 8. New page 11, updated fire safety procedures to align with lockdown first model in place. Changed the tardy policy to be 3 tardies in general, not 3 per classroom. And that's just going to kind of help them get control. You have 3 for every classroom, we tardy all day long, and these need to get to class, so I want to tighten that down a little bit. And so the tardies will be tracked by administration. Page 13 and 14, no policy changes, format and wording. 15, 16, 17, discipline policy changes, policy. Policy now implies teachers should have a formal classroom management behavior plan on file with the administration. Write-ups and IC from teachers will begin where the classroom management plan is. Discipline options are now more flexible based on severity and frequency of behavior and not rigidity tied to frequency only. So they've worked this out with their leadership team and they felt then some discussion on dress code and they kept it the same as it was. There's some discussion on their search and seizure search policy, and I pointed out to them we have a district policy on that, and that's what we're using. So I think other than that, just these changes. And then they gave me a copy of their entire handbook. So.
Questions? Okay. Entertain a motion approval if that's what we want. If that's the motion we want to make.
I'll make a motion that we approve the amended middle school handbook for fiscal year 2026.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded to approve the amended middle school handbook for fiscal year 26. All those in favor? Aye. Okay.
Aye.
It's been approved. We are faced with our food services program being short of funds. Mr. Kirby, did you have a little bit of information about that? The funds that we need that are being asked to transfer to the first food service department?
I'll give that one to Barb, I think.
Okay, great, thank you.
You know, we receive a monthly reimbursement based on the number of meals that are served each month. And that amount, we get about $50,000 and the expenses for food service is about $60,000. So it's been a little bit short every year. They've had enough in savings that we've been able to move that over there. We've already received our May reimbursement and we have $30,000 in food bills to pay, and then their salary will be $38,000 for June. Because remember, everybody's salaries are spread out over the 12-month period of time. They will have no more revenue coming in until we'll have 2 weeks. We'll have about 8 days that we serve lunch in August that will get paid for that first week in September, but we won't have a full month of reimbursement for those food costs until October. So food services right now does not have enough money to pay those bills and to meet their salary requirements for June, July, and August. So we asked the district to cover those things, and it literally is the district writing a check to the food services checking account. We recognize it as a liability on the food services side, and the district recognizes it as a receivable. We'll let that ride until there's enough cash to actually start paying the district back. And then when we get to the end of FY26, if we're still in an upside down position, that's when that fund transfer that we talked about with the budget presentation, that's when that fund transfer would occur from the general fund to the food services fund and clear that debt, but it would be funded by the general fund. I know we've talked a lot about the bad debt in the food services area. There's still $29,000 of unpaid debt. But that is not the reason that they are behind the 8 ball in their finances. It truly is the fact that the federal government is not the reimbursement that they're asking us to meet standards with the meal that's prepared, and yet they're not funding those standards. And because we still want to feed our kids, we're just going in the hole a little bit more every month. And so we're hoping that the federal government is going to increase that reimbursement amount. They didn't even consider it last year, and they will approve their budget their budget for October of this year has already been approved, and there's no increase in that. So in the near future, we don't see that increasing. And I visited with the state to see if, Rachel's new, I'm new, are we missing something? And the state was very clear that this is happening nationwide. I know some of our surrounding districts are $500,000 in the hole. Right now, we still have $60,000 in cash, but it's just not going to be enough to get us through the summer. So we ask for your support in paying those salaries and keeping those food bills current so that we can keep feeding our munchkins.
Thank you for that explanation. Any questions?
So, and the bad debt that we talked about, and actually you guys passed policy, your amended policy recently, allowing us to potentially go to small claims court, choose to, haven't taken anybody to small claims court yet. We have ramped up our notifications to a very consistent, stepped up, potential, we haven't gone there yet, but I guess, we'll summer months.
How much is due? I mean, how much?
$29,000 in the
29,000 to get that in October.
No, 29,000 is what we have in bad debt.
Right, yeah, right.
Yeah,
I'm
we'll
sorry.
need about $200,000.
200,000.
Yeah, in order to cash flow us through that point in time.
Motions.
I would make a motion, transfer the loan to food services program due to the funding timeliness.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded to transfer the needed funds to the food service department. All those in favor? Aye. Okay. You know, this next item on our agenda is one of our favorites. We just enjoy talking about purchasing buses. It seems like it's an ongoing issue, so I'm going to assume that Mr. Kirby, that we have somebody special here to talk to us about these
Very
buses.
special, yes.
Okay, so the bus production now is running like 18 months out. So we'd have to order one now to have one coming in and for the 26-27 school year. And the quote I got from Brad Carpenter to go through Sourcewell is $168,000 for a new bus for the 26-27 school year.
And that's just the regular route bus. This is
Right, that's just a route bus.
What was last year? Was it 147?
148, we paid 151 for the travel bus.
Right. So, we have one outstanding still that was supposed to have been here September, but now it won't be here till February, hopefully. So, it was about 15 months out, now it's about 18. So it's taking them longer to get them.
If we order at the 168, will it stay at 168? They can
Yes,
increase
yes,
that?
yes. That will be, that's
Because
the
they did
quote.
do that to us, right?
On the one that's coming in right now, they
I
increased
thought
it
they
to
increased it
$2,500.
$2,500.
They put a tariff tax, or tariff fee on it of $2,500.
Sorry.
Yeah.
They're supposed to still be the one that's still coming.
The one that's still coming, they added $2,500 to
Yeah,
that.
that's why I asked
Hopefully-
if we lock in at the 168, whether stay there, but I
you're not
maybe know
locked
too
in.
much
You're not-
information.
Well, that, yeah, the quote for the bus and that, I think that included, because the cover letter had, he was talking about the tariffs and stuff, so.
Sorry.
Awesome.
But yeah, so that will stay 168.
Okay, any questions? She loves to answer questions.
So we don't.
When's the cost of steel gonna go down?
So basically,
Hopefully, the tariff things will go away, but
So
you're obligating FY27. Yeah.
we're talking about a bus for 26, 27.
right.
We have a bus coming for
The 25, 26
25, 26.
school year.
And we've received
2 this year.
2 this year.
Right.
Just recently?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
The activity bus that was ordered, I don't know
Yeah.
how long ago,
Yeah.
it got here. And
Okay.
then the next route bus that was on the list, it got here a couple weeks ago. So,
Fantastic. Any questions?
They're so far out, do we need to order one sooner next time? Like, if they're taking
that's
that
what I'm
much
trying to
longer?
keep it to where it's
Yeah, I mean,
We have one coming in February,
yeah.
and
right
then this would be the following.
for the following school year. And hopefully it would be here
in that 15.
that September, October range.
What's the
Like
first
fall.
year depreciation on 168?
It's gonna be right around 30,000.
Yeah, so, yeah.
Well, I'd make a motion that we purchase a new bus for fiscal year 26, 27. We'll let Maze talk about it.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion made and seconded for the new bus for fiscal year 26, 27 has been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Order another bus. And we'll talk about this again next year.
We're still talking about
Well, we got
Maybe
one
sooner.
more, we got one more thing.
Well,
One more
a
bus to
new
look.
bus.
Oh, yeah, bus.
We also have a bus number 20 that,
You want me to talk about that? You want to?
We have a bus that we're ready to dispose of. At the moment, we have 2 bus 20s. So the old bus 20, we want to get rid of. We utilize some of the seat covers out of that bus to patch up one of our spare buses. So we would like to get rid of that one. Sometime this week, bus 16 will go away. It will be hauled off for scrap. And then, I don't know if we want to go out to bid on 20.
We have to, because the estimate was over $500.
Okay.
So we'll put it in the newspaper, with your permission, if you declare it excessive equipment, we'll put it in the newspaper. I don't know that we'll go the online route again, just because there are so many buses out there for sale right now, if they're not in tip-top condition. We only got the one $500 bid, and it is worth more in scrap on the bus number 16. And so we will haul that off and get scrap value for that. On bus number 20, because we have truly cannibalized it for pieces and parts, it's not in a sellable fashion. So we'll put it in the newspaper because we're required to by law. And if we get a bid of $2,000 on it, we'll take it. And if we don't, we'll sell it for scrap as well.
It's good running bus, it all runs, transmissions all work in there, it's just that seat covers are no longer on them. So it just has the metal seats that are left in there, but if somebody wanted it for a motor home or that kind of thing, that makes it a lot easier to scrap, to take all the seats out.
Project English.
not me.
You might need that school bus to haul people out to your tomato patch to pick tomatoes.
I need a cool bus for that.
Painted red.
I would move that we consider the old bus 20 obsolete for disposal and put it out for sale or scrap. Yeah.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded for bus 20 to become obsolete in our fleet. All those in favor? Old bus 20.
Yeah, old bus 20.
Don't send new bus.
Don't send.
Yeah, the new bus is bus 20.
Yeah, keep that one.
Old bus 20.
Old bus 20.
Did say old,
All right. We have a NSLP school lunch fee increase ask. Who would like to,
I can talk about that.
okay?
So, thanks, May.
Thank you.
Thank you, May.
So there is a matrix that we have to go through that, includes the federal reimbursement and the cost of food and all of that good stuff. And so there's a form that you go through that actually determines the minimum amount we can charge a student for lunch. And that increased this year for the student price. And then also the actual cost of the meal needs to be calculated, and that becomes our adult price or our a la carte price. So those prices did increase. that is required to be published in the newspaper twice, and so we put the first one onto the budget report, and then this one was published. And thank you, Nancy and Sarah, for catching my typo on there. I had flip-flop breakfast and lunch increased prices, and so Nancy called me and said, how come breakfast is going to $5 1/4 and lunch is going down to $3? I said, it's not, I have fat fingers. So thank you for fixing that for me. And so the report that you have in your board packet does have the right prices on there, but this is again a form that, you know, Rachel fills out based on her costs of everything, so it's the minimums that we can increase prices to. Adults have to be charged what the cost of the meal is, because there can't be any federal reimbursement for an adult having a meal. So we would ask that you would approve those, and it also is up for public comment if any of the people in the public would like to comment on those price increases.
Any questions? Last call. Okay. We need to take motion, so we can move on.
I'll make a motion that we increase the school lunch fees per the document that has been presented to us for fiscal year 2026.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to accept the price increases of lunch fees. Moving forward. All those in favor? Okay, shall be done.
It's the same, they both on the same.
I know, I saw that.
Yeah.
I know, don't try to find the attachment in the annual, it's this one.
They're both on the
I was
same
just gonna say,
piece of
it's
paper.
because it's on the bottom, but it's a separate motion.
It is a separate motion. I thought about putting the same
No,
piece of
it's
paper
all right.
on there twice, and I thought, well, no.
That's what I thought, I thought, what am I doing? Okay.
Lost.
Well, the school annual is
It's
in
listed
the
on that
same document as that was on the
But it's a
school lunch.
separate.
I just didn't attach the same one to the annual one. So it's showing the 45 to the 50, and that's a 12% increase for that's the name of the annual.
Pine Bar. Burr. Pine Burr. You say it right. Sorry.
That was the name when we were in high school.
Oh, yeah, I've got some 1929 pine burrs at my
Is that right?
house. Yeah, they're pretty
John, you
cool.
got a paint burr at home,
I have my mother's.
This is just simply due to the cost of
It is,
purchasing them.
and it's not, and this is truly a courtesy notice, because you're not required to purchase an annual. You know, you can buy one if you want to, you don't have to. So it's a courtesy notification to everybody that it did go up, so. And our price is still considerably less than our districts around us. They're around $65 and $75, so. We are not making any money on those. We are just charging what it's costing us to publish them. We want our kids to have one.
Fantastic.
And then I'll do this in the same line, a fee increase that I failed to get into the newspaper, that Nancy, you're going to get 3 legal notices from me this week, so will
We
you.
will check it. We will check it closely.
Gate fees are increasing next year as well, and that's another one. We're not required by law to put that in there, but it is. A lot of people attend our events, and so we like to let everybody know that the fees are going up. Adult gate is going to 8, children's and child and senior is 6. Visiting ASB students with their athletic card will be 6. A sports pass is 200, and a senior sports pass is 150. So those will be going into the newspaper next week. So I think it's up $1 across the board for each one of those. I don't know how much the annual pass has actually increased, but so Bo asked me to get those into the newspaper, and I failed too. So we'll be doing it
And
again.
I think this is actually something that they talked about at their SRB, because I think this is going to be everywhere.
Yeah.
Is what it's going to cost. So I don't think Weezer's increasing, I think, everywhere.
SRB is-
Yes, the SRB everywhere. So-
Yes, and so you're not making a motion on that. That's just food for thought, and
But you do on the annual though.
but do on the annual, yes, that you'll be seeing this again.
Okay, in order for us to move on to the discussion items, I would consider a motion.
I'll move to accept the $50 plus tax from the Pine Burr for students.
I'll second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to increase the fee of the student annual. All those in favor? Okay. All right, record time, almost. Before we get to the discussion items, was there refreshments provided? that we should
Barb
get out?
got you refreshments.
Yeah, I didn't even have lunch today, so I
I
don't
just
even
don't
know.
want to skip
I wasn't
it,
thinking
but-
of refreshments.
Where are they?
Andrea, Jim will have yours.
I'm gonna have dinner for dinner, not dinner for dessert. Okay, thank you, Barb. Appreciate that. These are fantastic. I would say we all need to take turns bringing stuff, but then I would have to take a turn, so I'm not gonna make that comment.
Oh, you can bring
Make
tomatoes.
cheesecake.
Yeah, corn.
Corn, sweet corn. Let's, on our future agenda items, part of our earlier discussion about supplemental levies and how we can put that new building up, we've come to the realization that our supplemental levies are becoming due for vote again. So just a preliminary, just start talking about, the needs of that we've to pay our bills. We've really appreciated the community supporting us in these levies. So, Kyla, would you help me, so we don't, or Barb, we talked about in our last meeting, putting this on the agenda so we can talk about if we're gonna go out for another levy, of having that on the ballot in November instead of May. And also just want the public to know that we really appreciate it, but two, we appreciated the state this year sending us the money so that we didn't have to levy our public again. We didn't have to go out for more taxes than the original taxes helped us with pay for that levy. So this next time we are up for the fiscal,
We just
our
have to-
facilities,
It's the supplemental is due before the plant facilities.
the supplemental is due first, okay? And in the past, we have been at,
We did the 750 this last time because of the $400,000 for the track. So we've been hovering right at that 350. And just food for thought, we're talking about food services being short. We're talking about Medicaid and special education being short. Districts statewide are levying for those shortfalls. So those are things to consider with that.
And just other things that you've already paid for your supplemental levy is we do not have pay to play. We support all-day kindergarten, but we're only formally allotted to 2.25 teachers. We also have curriculum and some technology, and Barb was even saying that the technology is still going to be short because we're not getting as much from the state. So we're just throwing it out there. I mean, you have 2 times a year that you can run go to your voters and ask for their support, November and May. If we go in November, this coming November, we have to have a resolution to the county clerk by August 29th. Am I right? 29th. And so you've got a couple months to think about it, a couple months to talk to your constituents, a couple months to say, hey, what do you think? And no decisions right now, but just to let you know that it's happening.
And there's nothing about the $350,000 that we've been getting for quite a few years that has gone away.
No,
That
those needs are
$350,
still
because
there.
that's the all-day kindergarten, that's your no pay to play, that's the technology dollars that we have in there, and whatever else I had on that thing. The 132,
Well, we did have the track.
yeah, the track was in there, so I guess that was the fourth item that was on there, was the track. So the track is the only thing that would fall off of that. And if we look to funding, some of the capital costs, if we do need to, do anything with the building or with parking lots and some of those kinds of things, I'd really like for you to kind of hold off on those and talk about that with the facilities levy. Just because it's a longer term to pay those bigger line items. But there's nothing about the 350 that's going away. So as you stew around and talk with your constituents about a dollar amount, if we do want to fund special education, that's an increase to that 350. If we do want to, fund the food services piece, that's an increase to that dollar amount. So,
And to Barb's point, when you say this is how we're getting $12 million, but 88% of that is salary and benefits, that 12%, that's what we're going to be taking from the general fund to pay food services and to pay those other things. The lights still have to go on, so we're going to be a little bit short to be able to.
and this next year, the supply line item is down because next year it was science and social studies was the curriculum. And all 4 schools chose to continue the current digital licenses that they have, which costs us about $15,000 is all. So we will have, the next year, I believe, is the CTE and the electives. That's the word I'm looking for, electives. CTE and electives is what would be the 5-year rotation on the curriculum purchases. And then the next year, we'll be back to reading and math. So we need to keep those long-term expenses in mind as you're looking at 2-year levies for where we'd be when those kinds of expenses come up. So I hate having to ask our taxpayers for money, but we have to keep the lights on and we have to keep the curriculum going. And there's things that, that the district has always supported. We wanted all-day kindergarten. We have to fund that. And we want an athletic program that doesn't cost the kids to play.
We are probably one of the only SRB schools that does that now. They all pay to pay. Pay to play, pay to pay.
Yes. So just think about those kinds of things, so the 350 kind of is that benchmark, and then we grow from that dollar amount for special ed needs and food services.
That was it, that's what we wanted to discuss.
And the November election is when the board members will also be on that ballot, so it is kind of a school election. I know there's a lot of public concern that schools sometimes like to hide the fact that they're running levies, and I don't think Weezer's ever done that, and I think we even more push that, away from the forefront when we say, hey, you're already coming to vote on, who you want to represent you, so it's already is a school election that you should be paying attention to, so.
And that's you and you.
Yes.
Okay.
So we'll have those documents for you to sign in August showing that you're rerunning in November.
You can actually start that July for that. You can.
Yes, you can. So the applications are due after the board meeting in August, so we usually have it on the August agenda so that anybody in the public could, if they so chose.
Okay.
That was what we wanted to discuss.
Any comments or further discussion needed?
I have a question. I'm not sure how well you can hear me. I'm kind of in and out of service.
I can hear you good.
Okay, I just have a question about, would it be beneficial or possible for us to get a quote on that building that we had, hoped to do with the pre or the
We've asked for that.
current levy? Is there any chance we can
We've
get
asked-
a quote on that?
We've asked EV Studios to give us their best estimate, and they're going to do a little bit of research and do that for us and get us their best
By the end of the week.
by the end of this week.
Has anyone met with them about how we want that building to look, or like what
Yes.
we're hoping
Yes.
to get inside of it?
They had a rough drawing,
Yeah, the
as
plans.
good as some
Yes.
plans of what we needed. Yes.
Great. Because that might help, just to, we have somewhat of an idea of how much we need.
Yep.
So, okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion pertaining to that? Like I say, putting this on the discussion item just allows us to get it out in the forefront, start having a conversation about it so we can even get questions from the public if they have them and what our needs are. So I thank you. Is there any communications?
I have one. We lost another longtime employee of the Weezer School District. I mean, she was 92, but Shiz Nakamura was a school secretary at Pioneer School for a number of years. And honestly, if you have the opportunity to read her obituary, it is amazing. I mean, she was in an internment camp during World War II, and she moved here, and she and her husband, Sut, did I say Sut? Okay, they raised 3 children, wonderful kids. Sally Nakamura lives here, Sally Bobet. And so anyways, I would just like you to think of her. Her memorial is going to be July 11th. And so keep them in your thoughts, and if you have time, send them a card. I know they'd appreciate it. She's going to do, it made me cry, but she's, of course, she wanted scholarships for the Japanese American students, so she's asking for that. But she also is asking for donations to Pioneer School to put some buddy benches. So a buddy bench is where if you're having a bad day or you don't feel like you have any friends, you can sit on the buddy bench and somebody will see you and they'll make sure that they go over. So you're never sitting alone on a buddy bench. And they're going to have a couple of those. She's going to make that.
That's good.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. Pretty sweet.
Yeah.
Okay. With that,
I'll make a motion, we adjourn the meeting.
I'll second it.
motion has been made and seconded to adjourn this
Riding along
meeting.
there.
All those in favor?
I